Welcome to the Fertility Mind podcast. I am your host, Jessica Friesen, a certified fertility mindset coach, a sound healer, and an international best-selling author. My mission for this podcast is to give you weekly episodes where you hear my own success with IVF and how mindset and manifestation changed it all for me. You will also hear from my guests who share their success stories in the fertility world. I want you to know that you are not alone. Even when things feel tough and when things feel like they aren't going your way, the tools and techniques you will get in this podcast, I know can change everything for you too. So thanks for being here with me today. Hello and welcome back. Today I have an amazing guest with me today, Brian Proctor. And if you don't know who Brian is, he's a beautiful soul and he's also Bob Proctor's son. And he recently just wrote a book called My Father Knew the Secret. So Brian, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, hi, Jessica. Thank you very much for having me on. This book, as you mentioned, I'm Bob Proctor's son. I actually worked with my father for a good 30 years. In the business, I was primarily on the marketing end of things. I did a little bit of teaching from the stage, but I was primarily in marketing. And I started writing this book. It's called My Father Knew the Secret, Growing Up with Bob Proctor. And I started it probably 4 years ago. So my father was alive at the time, and he knew I was writing the book. I think he was kind of excited about it. And it was all about sharing really the lessons that I learned from my father, Bob Proctor, growing up, right from when I was a young child up till I was 60 years old when he passed. And so I started writing it, and we would share, or we would talk in the morning, and I would share a lot of the ideas that I was writing about, and he would give me some, food for thought, I guess, some little things to ponder, and additional things I could put in there. And it was really an enjoyable process. I think he really liked it. The two of us spoke a lot early in the morning, because that was kind of our time. And we did a fair bit. And it was really funny. As I was doing that, Dad always said to me, he says, Brian, take your time with this. There's no need to rush it. And a piece of me feels like he knew he was going to be gone when that book was released, which makes me a little bit sad, but I know he still knows. And the whole time that I was writing it, I didn't know what I was going to call the book. I had a few ideas for titles, and I'd bounce it off of him, and neither one of us felt really good about it. And I just didn't know where that was going to go. Well, it was after he passed. And one night, in the middle of the night, I had a dream about my father. And then I woke up, and it was like 3 a.m. with clarity as to the title of the book, My Father Knew the Secret. And it was such a crazy moment for me. And that's where the title came from. So that's how it came up with a title. And the book is just, I'm really proud of it. It's chock full of stories and lessons that I learned from my father. And then after the story, I really get into some consider points that help you really take a look at how to apply that lesson to you and your particular life and whatever you're going through at the moment.
Yeah. So listeners, this book is absolutely incredible. I have reread the first 5 chapters. I haven't gone past chapter 5, because something that Bob taught us all, if you ever studied under Bob, is really study what you're reading to get to know the material. And the first 5 chapters are so beautifully written. And I know the whole book will be beautifully written, but there's just so much. And as Brian just mentioned, the consider this literally ties up the whole chapter, but it also just gets your mind going, and it allows you to put what was just said into work instantly, which is beautiful. So I'll share my little backstory. I shared this with Brian, and this is how the universe works. As soon as Tommy Collier was actually, I saw him posting a picture of the book and I was like, oh, whatever Tommy does, I love. So I was like, I have to get this book. And Bob Proctor was someone very dear to my heart that I never actually met in person. And that was on my vision board all the way back from 2014. So I messaged Brian telling him a little bit about how Bob came into my life. And a few messages back and forth, I asked Brian to be on my podcast, and here we are today. But in 2014, when I went on my fertility journey, there was a lot of dwindling hope around me. I didn't know anyone that was going through fertility. You name it. It was happening, and I needed something to focus me because I could not pay attention to the negativity around me or the fact that there's a really big unknown in the fertility world. And I came across The Secret. And when Bob spoke, I said to my husband after I got home from my fertility appointment, I said, I want to know this man. Like, I need to know more about him. And I listened to The Secret religiously as I drove an hour or more to my fertility appointments there and back. And it gave me such a level of gratitude. And something that Brian shares in the book, which I think is amazing, is he talks about how Bob didn't actually get paid to be in the movie The Secret, or on the audiobook version. But he knew the law of cause and effect, and how there would be a massive ripple because he just had such a generous heart and he wanted to get this message out. And I really do believe The Secret changed my life. And again, how the universe works. Because I wrote this and it was on my vision board, Meet Bob Proctor, somehow Danielle Amos, who I've known for many years, started studying under Bob, and she started posting about this course, Thinking into Results. I joined one of her free master classes, and I joined right away. And I got to learn from Bob virtually on, there was a paradigm shift, there was the science of getting rich, and he spoke to me on my screen, even though it was a recorded program, but he was really speaking to me. That's at least the way I took it. And I loved everything that he said. And it was my dream to meet Bob. I never got there. But this is the beautiful thing, is I get to talk to you, his son, which I get all teary-eyed. But anyway, continue on, Brian. Tell us what it's like to grow up with Bob as a dad.
Well, Jessica, it's funny listening to. I really appreciate those words, and it was great growing up with him. I think the big thing that Dad taught, and what was a big part of The Secret, was that we attract what we think about. And I think this really relates to you talking about fertility. I realize there's medical elements to it, and I won't get into that because I don't pretend to know anything about that. But there is also a mental element to it. And, so many of us, we create blocks in our life because of the way we are thinking. And what we give energy to and thought to, we attract into our life. That was the premise of The Secret. And so my father was really, really good at explaining to us how to start to focus on what we do want in our life, not what we don't want. Because when we focus on what's wrong or what's not working, we just attract more of the same to us. But if we can start focus on what we do want in our life, what we want to attract, and in this case, maybe starting a family, whatever that may be, if we can give energy to that in a positive way, over and over, whether it's through affirmations, creating some kind of a voice script that you'll listen to multiple times a day, anything like that. That was always about training the mind to focus on what we want, because it is true. What we think about, we attract into our life, whatever that be, good or bad. And he was all about the tools that we could use to do that, really. And affirmations were a big one. He was really big on affirmations. He said that for us to change anything in our mind or in our way of doing things and the way we experience things, it takes repetition. we have ways of thinking that have been ingrained into us, sometimes right from when we're a young child. And to change those thoughts or those ideas can be very difficult. But he said, if you take the time to write out a positive affirmation in the present tense of exactly what you do want, and even if it goes against what you're thinking or your current circumstance, but if you write it in the present tense of how you do want your life to be, and you read that every day, it might not make a difference in the first week or even the first month. But I promise that if you read that every single day, multiple times, if you stand in front of a mirror and speak it and look yourself in the eye, if you do that often enough, that repetition will start to take place, and it will change the way you think about anything, any particular subject, whatever you want to work on. That was one of the big lessons I learned from Dad, really over my lifetime, that has really helped me look at anything I want in this world in such a different way. Whenever a negative thought enters my mind, I oftentimes think of my father, and I think of this, just kick that thought out of my head. And what is it that I really do want? And I just stop giving energy to that negative. I'm not saying I'm perfect at this. There's always times that negative do come in, but I have that awareness. And I think for everyone here that is listening to this, you now have an awareness that when that negative thought comes in your mind, you need to be able to recognize that and change it. And that's it. It's just what you give focus to, what you give energy to makes all the difference in the world. And that was one of the great things that Dad talked about. And it's certainly something that I write about in the book.
Yeah. And I know you know this because he was your father, but he was such an incredible man. And when you bought Paradigm Shift, I think we had replays for like 29 days, something like that. Because I remember just watching it over and over and over again, thinking like there's so many nuggets that you just can't write down in those 3 days over those 2 hours that you're just like, okay, I got to write this down. But you could hear in his voice his passion. And it was like whatever Bob Proctor said you should be doing, because he knew what he was talking about. And I love how he talked about the impression of increase.
Mhm.
And that was something that stood out to me so much, because my whole life, people always called me Smiley. They always just said, like, you smile all the time. And I just thought, I didn't grow up with this lavish lifestyle by any means. Like, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. There was no crazy vacations or things like that. But I just loved smiling at people. And, especially being in the fertility world, people, I'm in a lot of social media groups where, people are just like, I can't do this anymore. And I asked them the question, if you could see yourself in 10 years from now, what would your life look like and how do you want it to look? And if you still see yourself wanting to have your baby, you have it in you to go forward. And these are people that aren't my clients. These are just people that I send private messages to. And, I get little messages back and forth that they just say, you know what, thank you. I didn't have the money or I didn't have the hope, but you just said something that thought maybe I can do this one more time. And it's that I thought I'm just leaving with someone a little bit of hope. That is what I want to do, because we give up on so many things in life that could potentially be amazing, but it's that terror barrier, it's that fear that just it can be paralyzing, and it stops us from pursuing a podcast, writing a book, starting a business, finding your true love. Whatever it is, it can be so paralyzing, and we just, we go through day-to-day life without the mindfulness of our, controlling our thoughts. And that is something that I really, from the moment I started studying thinking into results, that was the first thing that really stood out to me, besides gratitude, was leaving people with the impression of increase. And sometimes, even if it's just a smile to someone that looks kind of sad, who knows if that cheered them up or changed their day? But it took nothing from me to smile at someone or just say hi. Why not? It only makes the world a better place. It doesn't make us, so quiet or in our own little world.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
yeah.
Jessica, I love that. And I think for those of you listening that may not know exactly what that means by the impression of increase, my father was a master at it, and he taught me how to live with what we call the impression of increase when I was very young. And if that's okay, I'll share this story real quickly, and I think
Yes,
it
please.
really explains what it's all about. Um, I was probably 9 years old, going into grade 4. We had just moved to Chicago, and I'm originally from Toronto. So, I went to school in Toronto. We moved to England for a year. So then I went to school to England. We moved back to Toronto. I went back to school there. And then we moved to Chicago. So you can imagine by grade 4, this is already my fourth time being in a new school. And, I just hated being that new kid in school. And I'll never forget. I don't know why this stuck in my head so strongly, but because I was pretty young, and I know I've used it ever since for the rest of my life, which has really been incredible. Um, I sat down with him and I said, what can I do? I said, I'm nervous about going back to school. I'm the new kid again. And Dad said to me, really quite simply, he said, all you need to do is focus on the other person. Don't focus on you. And he said, the best way to do this is to put 4 letters across your forehead, MMFI. And that means make me feel important. What can you do with anybody you come in contact with to make them feel important? If you put those initials across their forehead, and that's your whole focus, is how to make them feel important, you will leave them then with the impression of increase. And the impression of increase is really this: it's that whoever comes in contact with you on that particular time or that particular moment leaves feeling better because they were in contact with you. If you can make that person feel better, even if it's just for a moment, you've changed their day. Um, you've certainly changed their moment. And depending on what you say, you could potentially change their life. It's really spectacular. And if all you focus on is how to make everybody around you feel important, everything will happen for you in a good way because all you're doing is delivering good. And as you said earlier, Jessica, you're really delivering hope, and hope is a powerful thing. And a lot of people lose hope in this world. Well, if we can be the deliverers of hope and we can reinstill hope in someone's life, boy, we've done a lot of good for them, but we've also done it for us because that giving, that and I don't know, enlightening somebody or empowering them also makes us feel good, and that's a really good thing. And that whole impression of increase is actually something that I wrote in the book. That it's just it's a powerful lesson. It's one I've used all of my life. It's one I've taught to my kids, and my kids now use it, and it's just fun watching that. And there's just goodness in it.
Yeah. And so I will share this little story. So my first fertility closed in the middle of our fertility treatments. And I can't tell you how devastated I felt and in a very confused state of like what is going to happen next, not seeing any possibilities. Because the way we found out, it was over the news. And I thought, like, I haven't actually heard from them. What is going on? Anyway, fast forward, I just kept saying, like, there was just this knowing inside that everything was going to be okay. And I couldn't listen to my outside circumstances. And some of the fertility nurses had left, and I emailed them separately. And I just emailed them what they had done for me in my journey, even though I hadn't had at that point we were trying for twins and we got our twins, but I wasn't pregnant at that point yet. But sending those individual emails of saying, like, when you take my blood in the morning at 7 a.m. and just showing up with a smile on your face and just having conversation and, trying to fill me with hope. I just wrote that individually to each nurse because I knew them. It was a smaller clinic. And I cried writing each one of those letters because it felt so good to write that letter but I also wanted to instill hope in them because I thought I could only imagine what is happening in their world too. Even though I'm on a fertility journey, they are nurses in a clinic that now potentially could be closed. There was a lot of unknown in their world too. And it just, that feeling of helping someone or saying something nice to someone was one of the best lessons that I really, truly ever learned.
Mhm.
And it kind of brings me into, I really love how you share your love story with Corey. I think how you met your wife, I think that's really amazing. Um, because I think it's amazing. So I would love if you could share the exercise that you did of writing your document and how you could choose a partner. Because I think this also really, you could do this exactly for your fertility world, your journey, how you want it to go, or just, if you want to have a twin pregnancy or a multiple pregnancy, or if you just want to have, a singleton pregnancy, or the gender that you would love your baby to be. So if you could share that exercise, because I think it's truly amazing.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So, yeah, as you say, Jessica, this exercise can be tailored to whatever area of life that you want. So, for me, I was in my 50s, and quite frankly, just never had a lot of luck in the love department. I've had several relationships, and they just never worked out. And when I look back on it, they were really not the right partner for me. They were not the right situation for me. Now, you don't really see that at the time, but that's what it was. And after a particularly bad breakup, I thought I'm going to give her a break for a couple of years. I'm not even going to date. I'm not going to see anybody. I moved from Toronto down to Florida, so I moved to a completely another country, and I just started over in a new location, a new place, just to kind of, I don't know, just for a starting fresh kind of point. Well, a couple of years into it, I was starting to get ready to, I wanted somebody in my life again. I wanted somebody special in my life. Well, that is a common question at the seminars that my father would get asked from the audience. It was always, how do you attract somebody special in your life? And like you say, in your case, it could be, fertility. How do you attract a baby into your life? How do you attract anything into your life? Well, he said that the big deal is to write out exactly what you want. And, we talked a little bit about that before with affirmations. Well, when I was looking at a relationship, I created a Word document, and I started to write out all of the personality traits that the ideal woman for me would have. Would she be physically active? Did she like hiking? Did she like doing whatever it was? It's just all these different traits. That she was very, very kind. Was a giving person. I just started writing all kinds of different traits, and I created this Word document. And every morning I would open it up and I'd read it. And every once in a while, I'd think, boy, there's another thing I could add. And I'd add some other trait in, or something else. And something that wasn't quite resonating with me that was in it, I would take it out until I had it really honed in really, really good. And I read that every single morning. Well, the funny thing is, Corey, my wife, I am now married. We work together. And we worked together at my father's company with the seminars. And we had known each other for quite a few years. And we were good friends. I really liked Corey. We would be at events. We'd probably see each other once every couple of months. And every time we were at an event, we'd go for a walk in the morning before the event. We'd just catch up on each other's life. And it was just always easy. But I never looked at Corey as a potential partner because we work together, and that just seems like that's one of those things that's kind of, you don't do. Obviously I was wrong, but that's what it was at the time. And my father, I swear, I think he knew Corey was right for me before I did. And he made arrangements to have us sit at a specific table at every event we did, just off to the left, that he could see us without the lights blinding him, that if he needed anything, we could take care of. And so every seminar, he had us sitting together. Well, without going into to long story over it, we ended up, becoming a couple. And when I look at that Word document, absolutely everything that I see in it, Corey is. It's to the point of like incredible. And it's because I had such intention in it and I was so clear on what I was looking for that just came into my life. And I went on a few dates, beforehand, and every time it was a one date deal because I knew instantly they did not fit what I had created in that document. And we can almost look at that in other areas, like you say in fertility. When an idea comes into our mind, we can treat that like a date, and you'll know if that idea is good or not good, if it's a fit for what it is you're looking for, and if it isn't, well, that's the last time you have a chat with that idea, and you just keep moving on. But if you can write out something that you're really clear on what you want in your life and add to it, make it really descriptive. That's something I did. I was very, very descriptive in it. It was an entire page. The more descriptive you can be, the better. And, that's really it. We tend to overcomplicate these things. But if we really keep it simple and stay focused on what it is we want, and more importantly, be really clear on what it is we want. The clearer we can be, the more concise we can be, the easier it is for us to attract that into our life. And if we give sole focus to that clarity, that statement that we have written out, and that's all we give energy to, we can't help but bring that into our life. And that's really it. So anyway, that was how I attracted Corey into my life, and it was really funny. The crazy thing was reading that statement after we got together. And I mean, she was just in alignment with absolutely everything in it.
Yeah. And I think that's beautiful because I think the misconception with manifesting or law of attraction is that people don't want to get so clear. Because if you want to have twins, at the end of the day, you'd be happy with a baby, but you're like, do I feel guilty or do I feel greedy for wanting twins? Or, do I want to find the perfect partner? Well, yes, I want to find the perfect partner. But if I write down all these traits, am I being too picky? Am I going to, wish away a really good one? I can't tell you how many people I come across that just say, like, I can't ask for what I want. And I just say, why not? Why?
Mhm.
Why can't you ask for what you want? Because there's billions of people on the planet and you can connect with them anyway. And that brings us into the just ask for what you want and forget the how. Because,
Yeah.
when that comes into fertility, if you want twins, but you're only transferring one embryo, you think, well, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to really focus on having a healthy baby. That embryo can split and you could have identical twins. There's, infinite possibilities of how the universe can work for you. But I always just say, don't focus on the how. Focus on what it is that you desire, and it will work out far better than you imagine. But you must persist because there is times that, especially in the medical world, things can, cycles can get canceled or something isn't always looking your way. And I remember like fear so prevalent on my journey. Even though I was listening to The Secret, fear really had a good grip on me. Um, until we were gearing up for our fourth implantation, I really said, I need to embody this material. I really need to listen to this material and do everything that it's saying. Even though, because I don't believe, I did listen to it every single time I was on my fertility appointments, but I didn't practice gratitude every day, or I didn't write out exactly what I wanted because my husband and I said, we've already had 3 failed transfers, so we'll be happy with just a baby. And I remember waking up one morning and I said to my husband, I said, call me crazy, but I want to have boy girl twins, and that's all I'm focusing on. And I'm going to send love to every pregnant person I see, whether, and just I'm going to create a baby registry. I'm going to do all these things. And he's like, my husband calls me Jay. He's like, Jay, we're not pregnant yet. And I said, I don't care. I said, this is my lifeline. And every single morning, day, like before I got out of bed and before I went to bed in the like at nighttime, I literally sat and visualized myself holding boy girl twins. And before we went into our transfer, I said, I want to name them. If we're going to have a boy and girl, like what are their names going to be? And my husband's like, you're crazy. Can we actually do this? I said, yes, we're doing this. And sure enough, we transferred two embryos, and 8 weeks later, we got to have an early ultrasound. And the ultrasound technician said to me, she said, did you transfer one or two embryos? And I said, two, why? And she turned the screen and she said, because there's two heartbeats. And it was just such a beautiful moment. And this is what I mean when everything that is in The Secret or everything that is in your book it's laid out beautifully for principles of how you can change your life, whether it's finding love, whether it's your fertility journey, whether it's creating more wealth in your life, or just abundance of joy and happiness. And we came across a quote the other day that said, everyone dies, but not everyone lives, like truly lives. And I think that is so important. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm really pulling something out of my memory here. But I was listening to a paradigm shift that your dad did, and he was talking about, he just had a really good way of asking questions. One
Mhm.
that just got you thinking. And he talked about you and swimming lessons. I think you were wanting to give up on swimming lessons or something. And he just asked you, Brian, why do you want to give up on swimming lessons? Just tell me. And he told this story. I thought that was just such a good way of asking a question. It's just, it was a direct point, but it got you thinking, like, well, yeah, why do I? And it just, that's what I mean. Just The Secret is really about curiosity of the decisions that you're about to make. Does it feel right? And if it doesn't, why are you doing it? Because it doesn't cost you millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to change your thinking. It costs you nothing. And it could actually generate a completely different lifestyle by being curious and asking questions. So,
Well, you know what, Jessica, just listening to you, I think everybody hearing this um, can really take something away with that. There's something that you talked about is you wanted twins. You were very clear on exactly what you wanted, and you were very clear to your husband what you wanted, to the point that you even were picking the names ahead of time. I mean, the more clarity we can get around what we want, the better it is, because the easier it is to attract that into our life. And yes, we've got to get out and do the work, whatever that may be, to attract whatever it is we want in our life. It's not always just the thought, but as long as we're clear on the thought and in a positive way, we will get on and do whatever we need to do in a positive way. And I love the statement that you said. When you see other pregnant moms, that you have joy for them. There's no envy, there's no anything like that. I think that's also a real big key. You're coming from a heart-centered place. And I think if we can all come from a heart-centered place and just think the best is going to come our way. And it really is all about our thinking. We become what we think about. So, what do you give energy to? And that's everything. That's a big part of what my father taught, was just really what are you thinking about, and your clarity around it and your concise statement of exactly what you wanted. There's a lot of power in that, and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
mm. and I share that because in so many areas of my life, like I refer back to my fertility journey because I guess I was an unconscious competent. I
Mhm.
didn't know exactly what it is that I was doing. I just needed to do what The Secret was telling me because I really, really wanted something so bad. And I did have boy girl twins. Dane and Aria are 8 years old, and I am beyond grateful every single day. And, 5 years later, we were on a secondary fertility journey. I now have my third baby, my second pregnancy. And I did. I started with affirmations. Like I said to my husband when we were gearing up to do our fertility journey again, I said, I really want to have a boy. And he said to me, he said, why do you want to have why do you want to be so specific on the gender, like a healthy baby? And I said, you need to have two sons. My husband has three daughters from a previous marriage. And, and I thought, we have four girls in the house, not including myself. And I said, you just need to have two sons. And part of the thing that I wanted to do for my kids that I just always thought was really something special. My kids have their grandparents' names, like their first names, as their middle names. And when I had my twins, my dad said to me, he said, my name's the only name that's not in there. And I said to my dad, I said, don't worry, you'll have your middle name in there. And he looked at me, he's like, okay. And sure enough, when my last baby was born, my dad cried happy tears and he just said, like, I didn't actually believe you when you told me that. He said, because, you just had twins. I couldn't imagine you wanting to have more children after twins and already having three stepdaughters in your house. And I knew exactly what I wanted, but I let go of the how of when it was going to happen because there was a period in our fertility journey where my husband and I completely stopped all fertility treatments for a couple of years. Um, and my husband said to me, he's like, I would love to have another baby, but financially we can't. And, with the beautiful chaos of our life, he's like, I can't imagine another baby as much as I would like one. I can't imagine one. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to get to work on myself and I'm going to do this. And I started doing affirmations every day. And I even named my son before my husband even knew. And I just said, like, I'm so happy and grateful now that Oren is here. And, I showed him, like, I have a whole gratitude journal of every day doing my affirmations and writing gratitude. And I wrote out a letter to myself, seeing what my life would be like a year from now with the twins and with Oren and having, our family and like the adventures that we would go on, mom and baby groups and things that I would do. And I read that I read that letter every day to myself. And when we went on fertility, did our fertility, the secondary fertility journey wasn't any easier than the first one was, but I refused to give up. And sure enough, he's here and it's amazing. Um, but there is such power in affirmations, and there's power of reading what your life looks like in a year from now or 6 months from now, and just feeling that feeling of being there and seeing it, that you can become that vibrational match to everything. Because I know your dad always talked about frequencies and tuning in that radio station, and it made such sense to me. And I would love for people to hear this information every single day. Like the world needs this so, so much. And it was because of your dad's program, Thinking into Results, that got me inspired to become a fertility mindset coach, to have my podcast, because I thought, I just want people to have this information in any way that they can, but more than anything, give hope on your fertility journey, and then use this exact same information that once baby or babies are here, how you can continue to grow your life and have a beautiful life and be part of whatever it is that you want to be part of. Because I don't remember where your dad said it, but he said, your DNA is perfect. And
Mhm.
I just thought, okay, if my DNA is perfect, I can have a baby. If my DNA is perfect, I can create to source, creator, universe, God, and do something with this knowledge. I don't want to just sit on this information and just create my own life. I want people to have this. I wish I had a fertility mindset coach coaching me through my journey. And that's what inspired me. What could I have had that would have helped me through the times of fear or the times of grief and loss, that would have propelled me forward? That what could I have done? And I thought, I really truly have come to believe that I'm a beacon of light and I'm just here to spread hope. no matter what way, whether it's, through sharing your book, because I would love to promote this any way that I can for you, because it is laid out so beautifully. And I really do contribute. The secret is what got me excited about law of attraction, is what got me excited about learning and growing. And I like how you have a quote in the book where your dad says, like, personal growth has no end point. It, like, there's no final chapter of it. Like, you can always keep growing, you can always keep awakening and expanding. There's always new higher levels to reach, but you can also celebrate every single level that you get to and just be in a pure state of gratitude that this is what you get to create by controlling your thoughts and your thinking and your feelings.
Well, you know what, Jessica, I got to commend you. There's a couple of things that you've said there that are really, really important. The first one is gratitude. You talked about gratitude quite a few times, and we do need to be grateful for what we have in our life and where we're at right now in our life, because we're where we're at just because we are. But if we can be grateful for being wherever we are and be grateful for whatever is coming into our life, that's a wonderful thing. You know, Dad always taught me that when we write out gratitude, not only should we write out what we're grateful for right now, but we should also write out what we're grateful for that is coming into our life. That's a really important thing. And you also talked about timeline, that sometimes things don't happen within our timeline. And we need to know that that's okay. You know, timelines are just something that we set. When we give energy to something, we don't necessarily get to dictate what that timeline is going to look like. It could be a year later than you think. It could be 3 years later than you think. The key is to stay focused on the want. Don't focus on what's not happening, because if it doesn't happen within our timeline, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But we have to stay focused on the good. And I have to commend you for all of those listening. You're getting to listen to this podcast, but Jessica and I are getting to look at each other during this podcast. The two of us are on video, and I can see what an incredible coach you would be. Boy, your eyes, your everything about you speaks to goodness, and it comes through loud and clear. So it's a wonderful thing. I think my father would have loved meeting you.
Jeez, thank you. But it speaking of timeline, that is, you and I are both right when we say let go of your timeline, because when my twins came and when my last baby came, really, they came at the right perfect time. Even though it was neither one of them were on my time frame or exactly when I wanted them to happen, but it's that when you get to look back and connect the dots, you can say, you know what? I grew through some really hard times. And I could have never seen the future. I could have never seen the things that I was about to go through to get me to where I was. But when my son came and when my twins came, I just thought I could have never imagined a more perfect time. And things were so calm at that point in our life. And, my son was born during the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. And there was so much uncertainty around us. And my husband kept saying, like, how are you so calm through all of this? And I just said, even through the hardest of times, there is beautiful light. And I said, we're growing a baby right now. Yes, the world isn't in the state that we wanted to be. But I said, Bob talks about harvest the good and forget the rest. And I said, I don't want to focus on what, the news is telling me. I don't want to focus on anything bad. I just want to focus on right now and enjoying every moment of this, because we are here right now. And, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And before I go on another tangent, thank you for commending me. I think that is so incredibly sweet. And yes, it made me teary-eyed. I am working on taking compliments. That is one thing that I hear and it melts my heart. And later at night, I process them. I'm like, that was incredibly sweet. But I don't always say thank you in the moment because I hear it, I'm like, wow. I'm still very humbled by, when people say really sweet things to me. So thank you.
You're welcome. That's easy. That was easy.
So is there anything else, Brian, that you want to share with us about your book or about growing up with your dad?
Well, I guess what I'd like to share is I really hope that you'll go and get a copy of this book. The title of the book is My Father Knew the Secret, Growing Up with Bob Proctor. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at brianproctor.com, either place. At brianproctor.com, I've got some bonuses that you get as well if you order the book. I have said many times, this book is not about me. This book is about my father, Bob Proctor. And this book really does have all of the lessons that I learned from him growing up my entire life. And I'm living a fabulous life. I'm living in the home that I want to live in the place I want to live in. I have wonderful children and grandchildren. I really feel that I'm living a charmed life. And I think I'm living that charmed life because I actually took the lessons that my dad taught and I applied them to my life. Nothing was ever given to me. I had to go out and do it. And that's a good thing. So, this book, Jessica, I really hope everybody that's listening will go and get a copy, because I know, even if you didn't know who Bob Proctor was, just take my word for it. It's only a book. It's not gonna break the bank. You will get some valuable lessons that can truly alter the course of your life, because they have altered my life. And the feedback that my wife and I are getting back on this book already has been absolutely tremendous. And it's really getting some momentum. So I just know there's value there. And, I'm grateful that you had me on here with this podcast, and we got to share some great ideas. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So one last thing that I will say, for anyone that doesn't know Bob Proctor, he was in the personal growth industry for 60 plus years. And he, yes, it was the secret that kind of opened doors for him to be, on a grander stage, if you will. But he truly was someone that was, I can't even put it into words. He was a magnificent soul. And yes, please do go get this book, because, Brian even shares in his book, like, and he even said on this podcast, the love department wasn't his greatest, journey in life until now. He has his perfect wife, Corey, and, he applied the information and it changed his life. This is life-changing information. So do yourself a favor and go pick up this book. You will get immense value from it. And anyone that knew Bob or came into contact with Bob, there was such an amazing, amazing energy that came from him. And he talks about how energy never dies. So he is all around us. He's coming through and speaking through with us. And yeah, so in my show notes, I will leave the links to Amazon and Brian's website so that you can go get the book. And Brian, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. It's such a pleasure to get to talk to you and to reminisce about Bob's stories and things like that. So with all of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Well, thanks very much, Jessica. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. If you found this helpful or know anyone that needs to hear this, please share. And don't forget to leave a review and subscribe. In love and gratitude, Jessica.